Hello there, everybody. This is Thavius Beck, and I'm back with another course to discuss Bitwig 3 and the all-new grid environment that's contained within it. With Bitwig 3, there are two new devices. One is named Polygrid, and the other one is named Effects Grid. Let me go ahead and open up my pop-up browser. I'm going to type the word grid, and I can see, here we go, there's Polygrid and Effects Grid. With these two grid devices, we're able to use a modular environment and patch together different modules to create any sort of instrument that we want with Polygrid or any sort of audio effect that we want with Effects Grid. In this particular course, I want to focus on how we can make specific types of sounds that we can use together to create a song, so that this will be a much more practical sort of exercise. Because of that, I'm going to be focusing on the Polygrid. So I'm going to select that and hit OK. Once I do that, I can see down here my device panel. I see it says Polygrid. But if I click here in this little black box, now I actually see the inside of my grid device. This is the grid. This is my modular environment. And there's a ton of different modules that I can select either up here at the top in these different categories, or I can simply right click inside of the grid environment and choose them here. Now, what's nice about the Polygrid is as soon as you load it, there's actually a couple modules that are here, which make it instantly usable. If I play a note, I get sound. So that's great. Right now, what we have is a very simple synthesizer, which is using this oscillator. This oscillator generates a triangle waveform. So this is where our sound starts from. After that, we have an envelope. In this case, this is for the volume and volume envelope. When we trigger a note, we see that we enter the attack stage, we sustain the note. Once we let go, it enters the release stage, so we can shape the volume over time with our volume envelope here. And then the last module here is for our audio out. So the signal that is being generated from the oscillator and then being shaped with the envelope comes out there. So it's a very simple example of how the Polygrid works. And like I said, it's extremely simple because there's three modules here and there's a lot more to choose from. So as we go through the course, I'm going to do my best to explain how we can use this in a more practical way. And in order to do that, it's going to be important to just understand some really basic synthesis concepts. If you're not familiar with oscillators, filters, envelopes, things like that, don't fret. The beauty of the grid here is that everything is laid out visually, so it's very easy to understand the signal flow and the significance that each individual module has in the entire path. So with that said, I want to start off by trying to make a bass sound. But before we make a bass sound, I'd like to look at one of the other synths in Bitwig, just so we have a better understanding of what are the common components and how they're generally linked together in order to make something that's more functional and useful. So before we start making a sound, let's go ahead and look at polysynth.